Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Marketing Share. As your co-hosts, Barb and I appreciate you joining us. And if you do enjoy the show, as a reminder, please do hit follow or subscribe. That really helps us out, and we appreciate it. For today's episode, we're taking a little bit of a different angle on things. Up to this point, all the guests that we have brought on have always been like an expert in a particular area of marketing because we wanted to bring in someone that could help you, our listeners, round out your expertise so that you learn what you need to know in order to run marketing. But today we're taking it from the completely different angle, from the other side. And so I think this is going to be really cool. In fact, we'd like to do more of these, and we intend to. So our guest today is Jenn Guidry, and she represents you, our listener, a recent marketing director, or actually we're going to have Jenn talk about her recent experience as a first-time marketing leader. And I think what I really like about this is that, that was one of our goals in starting this podcast, was to highlight the experience of what it's like stepping into that first time leading a marketing function when you know some things really well and you don't necessarily know everything. And so what do you do about that? Excited to have Jenn on. She is not only a business associate, but also a personal friend. So on another level, that's also really cool for me. But Barb, I know you've been a fast friendship here too, right? It's easy to get to know Jenn. So what do you think about this? And I think this is going to be great.
I love Jenn. This is going to be so great. And let's face it, we've all been a first-time marketing person, right? The first time sitting in that seat can be a little intimidating, right? Is even though you might be waiting for that position for a long time and you're super excited to get there, maybe you're sitting there going, when's it coming? I should have been there, ages ago, right? When you do finally sit in that seat, it can feel a little lonely, or you might get thrown a couple of new curveballs you haven't thought about before. So that's why we're doing this episode, and I appreciate Jenn being vulnerable, talking about that first time. I'll kick in and talk about my first time. Hats off to my friend Mike Skyra, who gave me my first opportunity. But Jenn, welcome.
I'm honored to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your first marketing leadership role, industry. You don't have to be specific, but let us know. How did that all come about?
Well, I mean, I always think I'm the weirdo in the room. When I came onto the scene, I did not know that I belonged in marketing. I played college sports. I was very driven as a young child and even teenager and young adult. I had my sights. I thought I was going to go into professional sports. I thought I was going to be, in sales forever. That didn't happen because life happened. Nobody prepares you properly in college for what you're going to experience in the real world. Not to mention, you are evolving every day. So, I was one of the last cuspers in Gen X. We're like, I don't know, I think we're pretty full. We had this really awesome, I was still doing papers in the library while my friends were whispering to me about Google, and it was just a really exciting time. So, coming into this world, I still did not know what I wanted to do with my life. So I'm sure there's plenty, hundreds of thousands of American kids out there that are like, I don't know, my dad told me to do this, or I don't know, my parents did. So I was the first one to go to college and, let's say, graduate. So when I got into the world, I went into sales. I was solving problems, really complex problems, in really creative ways. And I started thinking like a marketer without even realizing I was. So a natural transition for someone like me. You asked me about my very first marketing opportunity. I sold to marketers in a trade show exhibit house and found out exactly how they thought, what their problems, what their challenges were, what they were going through. I was studying them. That sounds creepy. I know it sounds creepy, but I was really fascinated with marketing and wanted to understand that world. And I was really tired of cold calling and, going through and just living my life inside of a pipeline. But I didn't know who would hire me. So I ended up branding myself really and got into the trade show world. Well, when I did that, I realized how much is happening in the world. When I worked in logistics, I learned how the world worked from the back end. Then I learned how to bring products to market on a go-to-market strategy on the trade show floor, from mom and pops all the way up to very massive Fortune 500 companies. So I got recruited within, worked at a marketing agency, and then lo and behold, was able to get my very first marketing leadership position as a regional marketing manager, if you will. It was in the property management world, but it was in the military. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And that's probably a good thing, because I don't know many people that would have taken that position. And that's kind of been my mantra this entire time, is taking roles and doing things that others didn't want to do. It wasn't exciting, but I found a way to make it exciting, because everything can be fun, and we can work hard and have fun at the same time, all while we're learning. And I think that's the best part about being a leader, is realizing we're all human. We're all just trying to, figure this thing called life out, right? And I knew I could inspire others to do what I was doing. I just learn how to be what they were. Didn't go to school for that, but as we all know, going to school for something doesn't mean you're necessarily going to work in that field unless you're a marine biologist or a doctor. So, which I also wanted to be a marine biologist. That didn't work out. I love dolphins, so and Shark Week. But as I got into that role, I think their occupancy was really low. They really didn't. It was kind of more of a traditional marketing style. It was not necessarily into what I'm doing now. I used a lot of common sense and a lot of risk and a lot of guts to take them from 73% occupancy to 97% when I left. 8 states, 4 states, 8 properties. So it was about a portfolio of 8,000 homes. It's a lot of stress. But I just, that was my very first chance to lead people and to have a role that was impactful, and it was mission oriented. And I knew that I was onto something, but there's more. So that's kind of where I was able to lead into other roles. And we could kind of maybe talk about that too, as I kind of progressed.
Yeah, and then so from there, though, right? Then after that role was then your first time becoming a director, right?
Yes. That was probably the first time in my life I said, oh, beep. Like, it was, what do I do? How do I transition from a managerial role? But yes, you're not truly leading the company. There's a lot riding on what you do, say, what you do next. It's a lot of pressure. I also jumped into a SaaS company, a SaaS startup company. It gets funnier every time I say it, because you don't understand really until you're in it how fast paced it really is, and what is required of you. And so I was in a position where I had to not only think quick on my feet, I had to understand data, very technical data, and honestly be able to not just perform for the team and be a leader for the humans that I was managing globally, but also, oh my gosh, look at these numbers. How do we get them up? So, as I do with everything, I think you gotta think quick. And so in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to go and get a degree really fast. I utilized my network. I was already, and this SaaS platform was a social media management platform. Okay. And it was a really great one. I never worked at a company that had such great reviews. And so I was like, okay, I got that going for me, because coming from the property management world, reviews weren't exactly great. So, it's a different beast. It's a whole different ballgame when you're thrust into the technical side of marketing.
Yeah, Oh God, actually, I was going to ask. So to set the stage, right? So you're now stepping into your first time at a SaaS company.
Yes.
It's for a MarTech platform,
Yes.
and now you're leading everything. So obviously, that's a lot, right? What
Whatever was I
what you,
thinking? Who
yeah.
the heck
Well,
did I
what
think
was
I
your
was?
exactly? What was your biggest challenge for you? What do you think was the thing that worried you the most as you kind of ventured into that?
Uh, Understanding. Oh, okay. What I want to say right now is imposter syndrome, because you go into roles like that, everybody expects you to, like, how long have you, you get asked these questions, and there's this understanding parallel in other industries as well as with other marketers, as well as with the CEO and other CEOs, that have this already. So I think what people need to understand in these moments, when you feel this way, it's not necessarily all that you know, because everything can be learned. They
Hmm.
want somebody. I realized that, and I was throwing myself a pity party for the first few weeks. Okay. And then I hired you out. I hired you as my SaaS coach. And that was the best day of my life. I think I had so much anxiety leading up to that point. And I went on social. I was in this really cool group. If you're not in it, you should check it out. The Social Media Marketing Society. Oh my gosh, just a wonderful group of people. Alec was one of them in that awesome group. And I think I was desperate that day. And I was going through looking at ROAS and LTV, and I was, all these charts and data. And I was like, okay, went on there, asked this question that will ever be burned in my brain. Does anyone here, can anyone recommend a SaaS coach? And then you literally replied and commented, and I think it was late that night. And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh my God, this exists! I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but it. So that's how that began, and from there, I was also so in tune with what I was learning from you, from more of a life coach SaaS kind of. You were helping me understand the beginnings and understanding the big picture, and maybe even some of the minutia, but I also had to do some extra work, right? So I was I was on YouTube. I was listening to podcasts because I'm a podcast junkie. Love to learn through podcasts. I think I joined every Facebook and LinkedIn group that exists as it pertained to SaaS. I was thinking to myself, you've done this before. It's just different industries. You can learn. Your brain still works. There are brain cells there. Let's use them. So, I just started to take chances and take risks. And I read every blog. I started writing blogs myself. Up to that point, I'd never written a blog in my life. I realized how important organic marketing and SEO, and how SaaS companies, utilize organic marketing, and wow, that was so exciting. And, understanding how to get ROAS on, it was really, really exciting time, but it was also really stressful. And it hit me like a brick that I asked this to my staff, and then I almost needed it to be asked to myself. This is a question I ask my staff most of the time when they're learning a new concept, or we're trying something new, or they're taking a risk that they don't necessarily want to, or even I've never done this. What do I do? It's okay. Are you uncomfortable? And they would be like, absolutely, yes. Okay. Well, if you're uncomfortable, then that means we're on the right track. We're growing. That's the only way you grow, is if you stay uncomfortable. I have honestly stayed uncomfortable in every position I've ever had. And that's why I have this, there's that term, full stack marketer. I don't think that exists. I think that's an impossible feat. I honestly think I am more of a generalist. And that's the hard part, because marketing today is scary, because kids are coming out of college and they're going into these niches, and then you have to stay in that world. I kind of love being the narwhal that I am, but I can be dangerous in any industry, and I can be dangerous in anything that you're going to throw at me. I will. There might be a ramp up period if it's something new, but give me some time. Anything can be learned. So and we live in this age where you've got information, almost too much information. So did I answer your question? Hopefully I did.
You did.
I think so.
Absolutely.
When I'm listening to Jenn, it's like, overcoming struggles and problem solving. You are like
Yeah.
a master of
Yes.
problem solving. And you're right. Today's marketing world, we had one of our guests talk about it in terms of spokes, right? There's so many spokes to the wheel of marketing today, and people are really becoming experts in each one. It's almost impossible to be an expert in all of them. Are you a SQL
It's impossible.
programmer? Are you an art director? Are you, the
And then go look at a job. Just pick any job. I don't care. I don't care who it's for. Open it up. You've got like sales positions. You go to a marketing position. You have to speak 7 languages. You have to understand Photoshop, but you also need to understand video. Like you need to be able to skydive, but at the same time swim in Olympic timing. Like there's so many random skill sets that is required for a marketer. I don't know how any of us get any job because it's so overwhelming. So, I like the idea of being able to pivot, as they say on one of my favorite shows, Friends. Pivot. So, I think that's absolutely necessary. I've always been more of a big picture person, but I also can jump down into the minutia. I think that's what also set me apart from a lot of my predecessors, because they only had done certain subsects of marketing, whereas I had lived this whole sales life. So I never pissed off the sales guys because I was one. I understand what they go through. I know what their pain points are. I know what they're looking for from marketing. So it was really easy for me to shift into more that product marketing role and be that conduit and be able that voice, of the customer, and being able to really understand all different departments and get them cohesively talking together.
Yeah, I think the thing for our listeners also that hopefully is coming across, and if it's not, like this is my perspective on it, right? It it's true that there are so many different areas of marketing now, but the goal isn't to become an expert at every single one. That's not how you become a successful,
No.
marketing leader. I think the goal is to be familiar enough so that you
Yeah.
have an understanding, right, of what each function is and how it's supposed to work, or what good generally looks like, right? Enough so that you can spot a good expert on it. You can find a good person. You know what good looks like. And I think that's something else that you did, right? Because the other thing also, maybe for a second quickly, when you took that first role at the Martech social media company, right? Can you tell our listeners what was your team like? Because were you solo, or did you have an existing team that you inherited?
It was
What did that look like?
it was an interesting mix because I had a global team. All right, that's another, as if I didn't have enough challenges. Come on. Let's throw in some different cultures, throw in some different languages, different hours. Let's just do whatever we can to make it as difficult as possible. I'm listening. It's okay. I think and if everybody is still listening, I would say the best way to approach anything like this, global, a small team, a big team. I had a massive customer success team that worked out of the Philippines. I had, I had full sales and a marketing team that were held out of Spain, Italy, Romania, Ukraine, Georgia, not the southern state. And then I had one American. Okay, cool. On a different time zone. So that was okay. And we were able to really jump in, and the way that I approached it was a lot of listening, which, as much as I'm talking, I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. I mean, the best way to approach it is to understand the goal, and that is going to look different to everyone. And I'm not talking about just leadership here. I think it's just as important to engage, your new hires, your customer success folks, your product marketing people, and whatever industry they're in that are listening to this podcast. Every department, let's say, it's under what are their goals? Because the CEO's goals look completely different to the customer success person's goals, to the one who's designing, your platform, to the developers and the coders, and their goals are completely different, and they might not be aligned. And I think that was probably my biggest challenge, was trying to align the goals of the CEO, which might seem obvious, right? Grow the platform, grow, you know, elongate, you get the more ROAS, elongate the LTV, retention was always really, really huge. We want to reduce the amount of people leaving the platform. So that was a massive shift to the customer success people wanted different things. Their goals were completely different. They were more interested in, this doesn't operate correctly. I'm getting hammered by these clients on this feature, right? So it's a matter of understanding, using both left and right brain here to kind of come together and find solutions across departments, cross-functional.
I keep hearing Jenn describe this. I feel like she has been a Swiss Army knife out there in terms of
oh my gosh, yes.
helping, trying to, and again, you don't have to be great in any one of those spokes, but you have to be able to be the control tower a bit, right? And what I hear you talk about when you're describing this too is the ability to translate everybody's objectives, right? That's a leader's job.
Yes.
That really is the leader's job, to be able to take that goal of the CEO, right, and translate it down to churn or customer success or conversation they're having.
Was my nemesis, yes, and churn is really easy to understand when you take away all of your crap, right, your company crap, that I'll say, and then listen to the client, listen to the customer, listen to the subscriber, whoever your demographic is. They're talking to you. They're telling you everything you need to know, but you don't want to hear it. I've worked for folks and worked with folks that just had it in their head. They had this tunnel vision. They're like, no, this is the way it's done. And I'm like, needs to change. We need to stop that. That's literally the definition of insanity. Can we stop that? Because they're literally telling you, I'm having trouble, I'll just throw a random example out there, not necessarily specific. They're having a hard time getting to learn the platform, right? What's the easiest low-hanging fruit there? Let's do an academy. Let's do an academy. And none of us are, these video experts, but I'm dumb enough to get in front of the camera. Let's do it. I will do it. We'll try it. It's not as easy as it looks, folks. There's a lot of takes and a lot of shiny skin, but it was really, really wonderful. I was so excited to be able to do something like that. And then, work with other, so there was the internal team and then there's the external teams that you work with. That might be vendors, people that you hire outside of your company to help you get to the finish line. So we had some really, really wonderful contractors and vendors that helped us and helped me not lose my job during that time. That was really awesome. But it turned out, I surprised myself. I mean, I was so proud of our team. They're so amazing. My gosh. And we did it. And then all of a sudden you'd see adoption just rise. You'd see churn go down. Like, it was just like, guys, see how this works? We just listen and then things happen.
It's there's a phrase that I didn't invent this. I heard it from someone, so I'm stealing it. But marketing's role sometimes when you're the CMO, it's not that you're not the chief marketing officer. You should think of yourself as the chief market officer, right?
Ooh.
To understand the market, because that's what you're talking about right there.
Change my LinkedIn to that.
Yeah.
Love it.
But that is also the sometimes the most important thing you can do as a marketing leader, right? Sometimes you can too easily get sucked down into the, oh my gosh, do I have my Google Analytics up? What is it saying? What's my is our paid advertising? What's that? You can kind of get stuck in some of the channels, and it's important to know those things. But sometimes it's also really important to be able to step back, keep an eye on the big picture, and say, hey, look, what is it that the market needs? Right now. And how are we responding to that through our messaging, through our products, through our content?
And I'm glad you said that. I think the biggest thing for me coming into a world like this would be, making sure that I'm not worried about things I cannot control. Okay. I can't control, the amount of budget I'm given. I can't control when we're in a recession. I can't control, but I can control our UX UI. I can control the way our team feels about their job life. I can control the way I show up to work each day and what kind of passion impact I'm going to have on my team. That means more to me than anything. So, if you work on and it's crazy, if you work on those other things, I think most marketers have this thing where we think we have to do everything but the kitchen sink. You'll see these ads that are so busy, they've got so much going on. And then you're scrolling and a whole marketing team says to you, I worked so hard on that. And, really it's like my big fat Greek wedding. We just, as marketers, just need to be able to turn the neck. That's it. It's the sales guys' problem after that. They're the ones that we just have to make it think it was their idea. So, I mean, if we could just adopt that, I think we could figure this thing out. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
So, I'm listening to Jenn, and I know a little bit about her history. She's actually, not only is she teaching us the great lessons, right? Listen to the customer, pay attention to the customer, manage up and down all across the, get the help that you need, those kinds of things. But, she's also done something else, which is outlived some of her predecessors at companies that may or may not have been challenging. I think there's a certain art to that, and that speaks volumes. Let's face it, today's CMO is in the seat for roughly 4 years on average. If you can actually, if you're actually staying in a position, there's kind of a magic to that. Can you speak to that a little bit, and how did that occur?
Honestly, I'm always gonna be honest. That's just my way. Take it or leave it. I thought I was going to get fired every day. I literally would wake up and go, oh my God, I'm going to get fired today. And honestly, I think Alex says it's my way. I don't know why I'm like that. My husband says the same thing. If he was on the podcast, he'd be rolling his eyes right now, probably high-fiving Alex virtually, of course. And it's one of those things about imposter syndrome, because I didn't have this big marketing degree and I didn't go to, Brown or one of these, I went to NC State, go Pack. And, I just literally wanted to be the best I could possibly be. And my standards for myself are insane. And if you heard all the self-talk going on in my brain, I was just beating myself up every day for some reason, but it worked. It made me work harder when you're a remote employee, you need to have a cunning drive. You need to be really self-motivated. It's like the reason I run. I'm motivated to eat pizza. That's why I run. I want the pizza. I'm going to eat the chocolate eclair. I'm going to do it. So I just, I needed to kind of build myself up to make sure that I didn't ever get lazy. And I think I don't ever want my team to go, oh my gosh, who did she think she is? It's really about them. So I would keep myself up at night. I would remember talking to Alec and be like, oh, I can't sleep. I'm so worried about my team. I'm, trying to get this for them. I'm trying to get that for them. So, I really do. I really want to build everyone else up around me. And then that way I feel like we can do something great together. So that's so the other part to that is sometimes, and when you go into a role, you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes, right? So you might have disgruntled employees. You might have people that are super happy and they're really worried about what you're going to do and say. And then you have people that are like, they're super happy because it's like status quo, nothing changes. And it's like Barney Rubble in there. And, it's never going to deviate from that. So then somebody like me comes in with a lot of energy. You have to wait on the energy. You have to calm yourself down. Okay. For my extroverts, I know the introverts are like, oh, but you have to calm yourself down and listen to them. They are telling that, just like your customer, they're telling you what they're upset about, why they can't grow, and what's wrong with the organization. And I just listen. And so, it could be as simple as I need another monitor. It could be as simple as I hate answering phones, or I don't like doing this part of my job. Okay. Honestly, I think that the first marketing position that I had, that I went in as a manager, that was, I was really large organization. So I literally went into departments like maintenance and where you're doing the changeover, and talk to no marketer ever done that. I'm just, again, I don't have this traditional training, so I'm thinking about it like a mom, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like a person that's just saying, how do I get to the finish line here? So I'm going to go into those departments and talk to every single person. It's like a focus group, is it not? It's a marketing focus group. It's just internal. And then, you're asking them the right questions. Then once they warm up and they understand that you're not trying to do anything insane here, then they can come in and tell you what's really going on. It could be really simple, or it could be very complex. It might not, so you take your low hanging fruit. What can I help them with now? What can I fix for them? What can I help them be happier for? And then it could be better benefits. That's going to take a little longer. Or it could, so sometimes I pretend I'm the CEO and I just try to be an extra extension of my CEO, and what do they need? And then on top of that, that's the other part that nobody talks about. It's like, that's the dirty work. That's the gray area. That's not my job description. It never was, but that's not really what I was trying to do.
So I think the lessons I got from you there are, take care of your team. That's real important. But then secondly is, there's a level of stress that is good to have. So if you're, because it pushes you, right? So there's a certain level. The trick is managing that level of stress. Too much, obviously, then it's going to debilitate you. And then you're going to have a breakdown at some point. But stay humble, stay hungry, but and keep grinding, and take care of your team. Yeah, that's
I
the
tell
Jen.
my daughter that she's an elite soccer player. She plays all over the country at 12, and she's really driven too. And I'm trying to slow her down. And that's one of the things, is understanding what you just said. I mean, that is so important.
Yeah, a little healthy paranoia is great for every good marketing leader. But in addition, what I heard you say, which I totally applaud, is think like the CEO. You're trying to solve problems, whether it's in your department or not, right? Are you a problem solver across, departments? Or are you going to be the guy that's like, and not in my area, that's not what people.
I mean, in my most recent role, you're throwing a big fundraising event. Have I ever done that? No. But are you doing that now? Yeah. Yeah, you are. You better do it right too. In a totally new city that you don't live in, let's go. Let's grow. It does, you'll surprise yourself. I think when marketers they come into this world, and it's like it's few things: project management, problem solving, it's team building, it's self-awareness. It's, look, I think most marketers with egos, they don't last. They might come in and be like, woohoo, but they don't last. You can't have a massive ego unless you want followers. Okay, if you want followers, cool. Go and be ego. You can ride on your ego all the way to the moon. But it doesn't work when you're a director. It doesn't work when you're a VP. That doesn't work, in my opinion. You have to roll up your sleeves and really be there for your team and understand whatever it is that you're marketing. You really have to understand not only your audience, but also your team. And, and the platform itself. I mean, we're talking about SaaS, but I've also worked in, e-commerce now, nutraceuticals, things like that. Wow, the medical community, amazing. Wow, I was so excited to be in that industry. I learned so much. Every single position I've ever had, it's just been uncomfortable, constantly learning, never being satiated. I do know that, at least about myself, that I kind of get off on learning. I love to learn. I love to absorb knowledge and research and any way I can. And so that's why I think I fell in love with podcasts, because of that reason. It's a great way to learn. You've got YouTube, you've got now TikTok. And then, I know marketers will at least high five me on this. Don't you feel like as soon as you think you've got it figured out, they create something new? Like, what's going to, like, TikTok, and now then the whole chat GPT thing. I was like, stop with the chat GPT. I don't want anybody taking my job. I don't need this kind of drama in my life right now. Can you just leave me alone for 5 seconds? I've got people that just figured out Meta's ad platform, because they change it every 3 seconds. And then take down, you can go on any group and see where they've taken down, people's profiles, and they've built up these thousands and thousands of followers as companies. And then it's like, nope, just kidding. You're out of here. So
it's either something new or the algorithm changes. Right.
That's why you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be interested in learning it. And, just as soon as, I was thinking, oh my gosh, ChatGPT, it came back with really bad answers for me. Then I figured out a way to prompt it differently, and now it's helping me. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough during that time when I was in the SaaS world. I was lucky enough to be one of the ones trying out OpenAI at the time. It hadn't been, wasn't ChatGPT yet. And oh my gosh, it was really racist, and it was doing things that were like completely inappropriate. And I was like, oh, I'm not scared about this. But then 3 days later, I'm like, whoa, why does it sound like he just went to Harvard? This is not okay. So like it happens so fast. And then, so it's scary. It's scary at the same time. It's going to help a lot of marketers, but it's going to really change a lot of the ways we do and see the world, how we see the world, the way that we communicate. Sometimes when I've used ChatGPT before, just to kind of, I really am a firm believer in using your brain, letting your brain be the creative, because the human is just so amazing in the way that our bodies and our minds work. So, but sometimes we would joke around with ChatGPT, and then sometimes their answer would be way better than mine. And I'm like, what the heck? I spent like 3 hours on that. It was like, whatever. I give up.
So Jen, this is a good segue to kind of the key summary points, because I know when we were talking to you getting ready for this podcast, I think you had a really good wrap of key things, advice that you'd give kind of to new marketing leaders. And I know the number one on your list was what we were just talking about and what Barb just recapped, which is don't be afraid to learn.
Don't be afraid to learn, and don't be afraid to say that you need help. I know we said that earlier, but I think it's a lot easier said than done. But don't trust everybody, right? Like, you need to do your research, and you need to stay uncomfortable. That would be another tip. I know I said that as well, but let's hey, we all know that touch points, there's going to be at least 3. So you need to stay uncomfortable in order to grow. I think marketers and anyone listening to this podcast is you cannot stay comfortable and stay. You're gonna be, especially in marketing, you're gonna be irrelevant in a year, and in maybe 6 months. Things are happening so fast in AI that it makes me scared to see what will happen, right? And like copywriting, things like that, but coding, I would say don't be afraid to get that degree later in life if you really feel like you need it. But I'm not saying, look, I don't have an MBA. I don't have a PhD. I have a business degree. All right. I have a sports management degree as well. I thought I was going to work in professional sports, being that I was an athlete. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your mind at 30, 40. My mom decided she wanted to be a chef at 67. Okay, cool. You can do that. And when you need somebody to market you, I'm available. No, just it is. I would just say, don't take yourself so seriously. I mean, this thing called life, it happens in a blink, and you got one chance at it. And so, go for it. just take the risks. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen?
I think the other one that you said that I really loved is also don't be afraid. You solve people's problems. That's what you do,
Oh
right?
my gosh, that is probably the most important one. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I get asked a lot, what is the thing that you do? How did you get to where you are? And this is probably, if you haven't listened to anything during this whole podcast, just remember this part. Um, Always be the person that when it's going to happen, there's going to come a day where your CEO or your boss or your department head is going to say, hey, I need somebody who knows how to do X. Raise your hand, volunteer, say I will do that, but then figure it out really fast. That is the number one thing that I have done my entire work life in sports. Be competitive. Don't be afraid of being competitive. I think that we've been taught to give everybody's kind, but there's also this thing called toxic positivity in the workplace. And I think if you can just figure out the thing that you need to do to be successful when your boss says, I don't know how to do X, I can do it. And I just kept doing that over and over and over again. Then I figured it out. Then I figured out how to do it. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but I figured it out and I made it happen. And I came up with a solution. But then the CEO and the team could say, "Whew." The last thing I'll say is making sure that when you volunteer for the job that nobody else wants, especially if you're trying to get in the door, do the things nobody else wants to do. Yep.
Jenn, thank you so much for sharing this. I think that, like I said in the beginning, this is a very different type of interview for us, but I love it because we're hearing straight from someone like you, talking about what it was like. And I think I appreciate you for being open and vulnerable and talking about this stuff, but also sharing the things that worked and the things that you take away and how you've been able to get through this. And I think I enjoyed listening to it. I think our listeners will as well. And we appreciate you being on.
Absolutely.
It's been an absolute honor.
Last thing I'd say is Jenn is approachable. Be that approachable leader who people want to work for. You got to be one of those leaders that people want to work for, and you're that type for sure.
I appreciate that. That's I think my favorite thing of any team member that I've had the honor to mentor is hearing those types of things. Oh my gosh, you're the best boss I've ever had, or that for me, that's everything.
Thanks, Jenn.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on.